Okay,
all right.
sorry about that.
We'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. Can I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bergman,
Here.
Vice Chair Hall is absent. Ms. Hales? Here. And Ms. Howard?
Here.
Okay, next on the agenda is new business. You want to start, Ron?
Thought you had something else new or something.
No?
Well, what I thought I'd put together for you is a financial update of fiscal year 2024 that just ends September 30th, 2024. You'll see throughout here, it's unaudited because I wanted to give you some numbers, the most current, but there still could be some entries straggling in and stuff. We always get invoices coming in late, so these are unaudited, preliminary numbers. General fund being the biggest fund, I wanted to show you the revenues of the general funds. Comparing 2024 to 2023, we're at $34,637,000, or about 1 million over 3% over 2023 for revenues. Budget-wise, we're about 2% over the budget with these revenues. Going to expenditures of the general fund, we're at $34,475,000, about 1.2 million over 2023. This report doesn't include outstanding encumbrances. Expenditure-wise, comparing it to budget, we're about like 98.5% of the budget as far as expenditures in the general fund. Just trying to detail the revenues by the different categories, going by taxes, and of course, ad valorem taxes, and highlighted in blue. That was our biggest increase, 1.4 million. Other things, another larger increase was charges for services, and light blue there at 314,000. That's mostly due to we had another unit with the EMS. We went from 2 units to 3 units, so the county's paying us about roughly 250,000 more. Fines and forfeitures, that's always erratic, that 99,000 increase. Some years it goes down, some years up, but we had a larger fine in 2024. Interest earnings up 122,000 because the rate of returns were doing better. The one decrease, as you'll hear me sort of say during the presentation, is between sales tax. We saw sales tax receipts going down. I think there was less construction activity in the city, which affected building permits. Fees are down, and impact fees have been down. Impact fees are not in the general fund, though, but like I said, the revenues came in at 1,064,000 more. The good thing is, if you look on the far right column, even a couple more down, if you see we're at 100% or more of budget, so that's good. We're coming in over budget on most of those items, revenue-wise. Revenues by category, taxes are the highest percentage at 54.7%. I always like to show that the top 10 revenues, which, of course, one is the property tax, where we had one highlighted in yellow, 1.4 million increase over last year. Property taxes are 40% of the general fund budget. Utility tax, electric, and franchise-free electric went down a little bit because the rates went down, but franchise-fee electric went down a little bit more, like about 100,000. What we found out, and I started talking to some other cities, was, why is ours down? Theirs was down too. But then I found out from Dunedin that Duke Energy had to do a correction. They paid us too much in the previous year. So basically they clawed back $100,000 from this year's budget, from this year's receipts for franchise fees. Half-cent sales tax, that's one of the sales taxes we saw that were going down to 54,000. Revenue sharing is also mostly sales taxes, down 50,000. And building permits fees down 46,000 from the previous year. You see, most of them in the far right column are 100%, revenues above the 100%, except for, the half-cent sales tax, the revenue sharing, and the building permit fees coming a little bit under budget there. Getting into expenditures by category for the general fund, personnel services from 2023 to 24, an increase of 2.4 million. Operating services up down 675,000, and capital outlay down 303,000. But down below, I mentioned the increase in personnel, 10.88% is due to salary and benefit increases, plus the 6 new positions. Operating, a decrease of 7.1%. It's due to the one time, I might have mentioned to this previously, we had to do a new accounting standard made us take any subscriptions and capitalize them for, like last year it was 1.2 million, which inflated the expenses by 1.2 million for this expense. So that's why you're seeing a decrease in the operating services of 675,000. If I didn't have that accounting entry last year, you would be seeing a gain of 600,000 for the operating expenses. Capital outlay larger last year. We went down because we had some few items last year between the cemetery mausoleum roof, public safety building, sponge docks, sponge boat repairs, some other building renovations and planning, and the old PD department had some capital improvements. Expenditures by type of service. Of course, personnel services is the biggest category in the general fund at 71%. Now I get into the projecting, I say it's all unaudited, the fund balances of the general fund. And this year, I don't know if you said it, by breaking it up by a different category, by non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned. Non-spendable, it's an accounting entry, but we're not required to spend those monies. They're prepaid items, they're leases. We can't spend that money. Restricted is, there's basically an explanation is we're bound to keep that source and use of money restricted by external parties, if it's state, federal. Committed category is based on the city had a commitment, either a charter, ordinance, or resolution to set aside some money, but the city can also claw back that money if they did another resolution ordinance to rescind that. Assigned it's a assigned category is management's discretion to assign certain items within the fund balance. Like I say, going down the list there, you've got the non-spendable, the restricted for donations. The balances are on the far right projected as of today, 355,000. Then you got the committed, the cemetery perpetual care, 655,000. Tree bank, 401,000. Right-of-way, 148,000. Sidewalks, 45,000. Compensated absences under the assigned category of almost 1.3 million. Disaster reserve, 50,000. Restricted reserve used in budget, that's 586,000. That's money used in next year's budget. We're required to restrict that aside in the previous year's audit. Disaster reserve, 50,000. Oh, I'm sorry, I already did that. We have an insurance reserve of 202,000. The perpetual exclusive easement, 720,000. That's the money from the sale of the cell tower at Fire Station 70. Maintenance reserve, 607,000. Public safety reserve, 290,000. And then we're required to reserve off the encumbrances at September 30th, 2024, in the amount of 262,000. And then down below, lastly, is the unassigned fund balance. Last year was 8.6 million. So far I'm projecting 9.1 million. I was excited to see some of my expenditures I think projected to be higher didn't come in as high. There's one other thing that, like last year, the unassigned would have been more, but we transferred 300,000 back to the sanitation fund because it was going below the minimum fund balance because their yard waste operations have been operating at a deficit. I don't know this year if I got to transfer some money. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant. I've got 9.1 million there. Will we have to transfer some money this year to help out to keep the sanitation fund at the minimum fund balance? But we'll still see. Like I say, the unassigned fund balance is increasing 505,000 based on these numbers. We're at the unassigned fund balance is at 26% of expenditures. And the minimum 20% amount is 7.2 million at September 30th, 2024. And these are just explaining those categories I tried to go over earlier, like the non-spendable, the restricted, the committed, the assigned and unassigned, and why we have to do that restriction. I went ahead and tried to project out the general fund unassigned fund balance. With and you see the column with the green columns are the unassigned fund balance, the green bars. The bronze colored ones are the minimum fund balance at the 20%. The gray line is where we're at and projecting going forward. So at the 9,181,852, we're at like 27% of the expenditures. The expenditures were like 34,475,000. We're at 27%. Based on the average revenues and expenditures between both of the expenditures and revenues, we're at like 4.4, 4.5% for both of those. We're pretty close. And then, but I also, for the unassigned, I projected that we put in 1% into the unassigned fund balance. In about 2026, I was trying to keep it at 27%. So and I think in 2026, I had to increase it to 1.1% to keep it at that 27%. But it's making sure we're increasing the fund balance with the 1% you all have mentioned. Just trying to get into some of the other governmental funds. We got the hospital lease fund, say what it was at the end of last year. And then on the far right in yellow, projecting it to September 30, 2024. We got the hospital lease fund at 3.1 million. The ARPA fund at 760,000. All the ARPA fund has to be obligated by this December 31st. I'm happy to say we've got it all obligated. We've spent 9.8 million. We just have the 3 million left to spend. So we're on schedule. It's all obligated. It has to be all spent out the door 2 years from now, which I think we might have it all gone by this time next year. Then there's a local option gas tax, 56,000. The school crossing guard fund, 12,000. Handicap fund, about 19,000. The impact funds, the police impact fund, is same sort of schedule, what it balance was last year, and then under the yellow, the projecting at the end of September 30th, 2024. Police impact, 584,000. Fire impact for 34,000. Library impact, 491,000. Recreation impact, 2,800. General government, 145,000. And transportation impact, 135,000. And like I say, impacts, I don't know if with less construction activity, where we're seeing actuals to budget was with a lot of these, between 20 and 30% of budget. So less activity and money coming in from the impacts this last year.
Is that a trend you expect to see continue?
Well, I looked into the previous year, and what we had 3 neighborhoods being constructed or subdivisions being constructed in 2023. This year, from talking, we only had 1. So I'm hoping there's more development, but I'd have to probably inquire of the planning department and building to find out what's on the.
I don't know where it would go.
Pardon me?
I don't know where they would be.
In terms of a development.
Yeah. Some other funds, we've got the federal, and they all got their separate purpose. And on these screens, I try to I put in, the legal authority, what the restriction on use is. The federal equitable sharing, we got 76,000 in it. Public art fund, 100, again, on the far right column in the yellows, what the balance is projected for September 30th, 2024. Public art funds, 173,000. Land preservation, 876 bucks. But they spent money on the property down there at Mears and Safford down there. Recycling grant, 44,000. CRA, balance of 1.8 million. Getting into the public education fund, 24,000. Police confiscated trust, 34,000. Employee benefit cost deferral, 80,000. Capital project fund, 97,000. Sidewalk improvement fund, 1.7 million. And the 1 cent local option sales tax fund, almost 8 million. A good bit of the bill will probably be spent on some Station 70 coming up. That we got reserved off between 4.5 and 5 million for Station 70, which is out for bid. And I'm not sure. I don't know, construction will start this year, or might be next year.
Next year.
Well, that's enough of the finances for 2024. I just thought I'd give you, an update on Hurricane Helene in Milton, which has been keeping us all busy for the last month or so. This is just a summary page of the force account labor, the debris, damages, Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, and the total. We had force account labor for Helene, about 434,000. Milton, 681,000. So a little over almost 1.1 million of force account labor. These are the people that worked before, during, and after the storm, during the EOC. Everybody that got work towards the storm that got overtime, it's 100% reimbursable since it was used during the first 90 days. Debris removal, 133,000 Helene, 5 million Milton, for a total of 5.2 million. You're probably going, well, why is it mostly under Milton here? Well, FEMA was trying to decide, we had Helene. They were starting to do the cleanup for 2-3 days, and all of a sudden Milton was on the horizon. They had to stop. So that was the discussion. Well, where are you recording it under? Then FEMA made a vague ruling, but they said to put most of it all onto Milton here. So that's where we've got filed under Milton. There's probably going to be more expenses here. We got an estimate the other day. I'm trying to get, I want to get more of an accurate estimate. I keep going with people, but it's going to go up. I'm just not sure. I hate to say if it's like another 1.5 million, 2 million, but it looks like it's going to go up, that total from the 5 million. Damages, and I just want to say these are the initial numbers provided by departments. The 3.9 million under Helene, 514,000 under Milton, and 4.4 million total. These are the numbers we're presenting to FEMA. They want to see the initial amounts that we're going to record with them. But hopefully we've gotten with the insurance adjuster to come out. So hopefully a good portion of it is insured and covered under insurance. If not, we'll be applying for the FEMA reimbursement for that.
What's the majority of the damage? Like, where was the damage primarily? Was it in concentrated areas of, like, is this public buildings or?
Or Sunset Beach? Is
I've
that
got a list a
factored in?
little further here, but Sunset Beach was a good bit.
Trying to hold my questions to the end, but.
Sunset Beach was almost $1 million, the estimate. We've got the erosion on the Elfers Trail, about 900,000. Lift stations, we got about 12 lift stations that sustained damage. About, like I say, $1.5 million worth of 12 of them. One, River Village, was the biggest one. A loan for that one is like $700,000 for that lift station. So those were the three biggest items. The Marina building got a lot of water in it. I don't know if they're sure if they're going to demolish it or if they're going to try to fix it. So that was another $300,000.
Were the lift stations mostly damaged by like debris coming through the water as it came through?
The saltwater intrusion, I believe, and all their electrical.
Got it.
This was the debris, and getting into more specifics as provided by the contractor. Of course, there's Hurricane Helene. The only thing we've got is the city labor for $133,000. But then we get into Milton with the vegetative and ROW, which is right of way to the DMS, the debris management storage, and then from DMS to where we finally locate that nice pile of stuff that's over there. Then C&D, which is construction and demolition debris, right away to DMS, and then DMS to the final. And then the grinding and compacting of the vegetative and the C&D. And then there's a management fee for the DMS site. And then there's white goods that had to go from right away eventually to their final resting spot. So this was the breakdown of the debris totals, which with the debris monitoring company, the Tetra Tech, which goes around with, there's a Crowder truck, you'll have Tetra Tech following these trucks with their iPads, recording all this stuff, where it is, the addresses, FEMA wants all this stuff. So it total came to almost 5 million. We started using a consultant with the last couple hurricanes, which I think is a great help. They helped us there's something that FEMA provides, you can file for expedited. They know that cities like us, maybe you don't have all the money and you got to pay these contractors now to pay for all this. So we're filed for expedited for 50% of the money, which would almost be 2.5 million. It's already been obligated by email. We've had the sub-grant approved. The money goes from FEMA to the state, and everything funnels through the state. So it's like you do all your paperwork with FEMA in the portal, but then all of a sudden you got to do all this paperwork with the state as a sub-grant agreements and all these other forms they want filled out. It seems like we're on track to be getting the money soon. our person with the state's email and said, Ron, I think we're getting ready for payment. The sub-grant was approved. We're doing good. So, knock on wood, we might see 2.5 million to offset the cost. I haven't gotten the invoices yet from any of the debris people yet. So hopefully we'll have the money before the invoices come. And then the balance of FEMA, and then there was some city labor with Milton too of 56,000. So a total of 5 million for debris for Helene and Milton. You were mentioning some of the damages. I tried to list here Sunset Beach, 985,000. Public safety building was incurring some, I think it was mostly leaks in the building, water leaking through the roof. Lift stations, 1.4 million. Some sidewalk damage. Elfers Trail erosion. Public Works had a pole barn with 90,000 of damages, and the Marina building, 300,000. And then I just lumped some of the other smaller stuff under miscellaneous for the total of 4.4 million. And I want to say, these are the initial estimates from the departments that they came up with. FEMA will be going out to inspect these sites. We talked to them yesterday, trying to arrange to get them in here. I think in the next week or two, they go out and they're going to do their inspection of the sites.
What kind of deductible do we have for the insurance covered items?
Well, it's going to depend on the item. And I'm not sure the individual ones. I could probably find that out for you.
If it was, since it was a named storm, is it higher like a home? I don't know how that works for the city, but
I hate to say because I'm not sure, but I could find that out for you. And this is just summarizing the overtime labor, what we saw before for Helene, 434,000, and Milton, 681,000. Like I say, it's 100% reimbursable, along with the debris, since it falls within the first 90 days, is 100% reimbursable. Funding for the debris. Like I say, $5 million. The expedited, hopefully we get soon, almost 2.5 million. That's leaving 2.5 million left to pay of that 5 million. The balance we planned on coming in the sanitation fund, 1 million. There's 1.5 million available in the sanitation fund. We're going to use 1 million of that to cover part of that remaining balance of 2.5 million. And a loan to the sanitation fund from the hospital fund to cover the balance of that, 1.5 million. If any more money is needed over that amount, as mentioned below, we've still got more money in the hospital fund. We've also got the sidewalk improvement fund. And if we need to, we would charge the general fund for any additional debris removal.
I tried really hard to catch up on the meeting Tuesday night all the way before today, but I didn't. And I actually stopped right in the middle of when Vice Mayor Koulianos said, why aren't we just taking this from the unassigned fund? And I was watching YouTube saying, yeah, why aren't we doing that? Why are we moving all the money around like that?
Well,
And I didn't hear the answer.
you could, and that's, I think I mentioned to Vice Mayor, if you want to, we can charge it all to the general fund.
Or unassigned fund balance. Like, why
Yeah.
aren't we using that money instead of money that's meant for other things? And I just
Well,
didn't, I
we
didn't
are-
get to the answer part.
Well, we are hitting the general fund already. If you see most of this overtime, most of it's general fund people. It's already being hit with the general fund overtime.
One of my questions too was on your fiscal year, the 930 numbers, like, does that include the payroll that's accrued through that date or just paid through that date?
Oh, yeah, it's all the payroll, and it includes Helene, because Helene.
That's what I was wondering. Like, so it's done on like every hour worked through 930,
Right, yeah.
not paid through. Okay.
Yes, it's all the payroll, and it's all Helene too, because Helene fell into
So of the
September.
100% we're at includes 434,000 Helene labor, or is this your estimate for the total? Like your 930 number for payroll expenses, personnel
Yes,
at 2.4 million. We're at 100% of our budget amount roughly. Does that include this whole 434,000 or
I'm sorry,
it
which
part
slide,
of it?
which slide are you looking at there?
it's
19.
back a ways.
So basically, the overtime from Helene is in your 930 numbers.
Correct.
100%
All
of that. So
430
that whole 434,000 is in the 2.408 that has you at the 100% of budget.
Right.
Because I'm playing the tape forward in my mind. for the next however many years until this fiscal year falls off. We're gonna be like, why was payroll so high that year? And then we're all gonna say, oh, it was Milton and Helene.
Well, and that's why sometimes when we do these comparative, we go back 5 years. We go, oh, what happened back in 2017? Well, that was Hurricane Irma. You know, we had overtime and debris for Hurricane. Yes, so yeah.
So without that number, we're not as far off.
So your unassigned balance projection at 930 though would include that 434.
Correct.
So 681 would be coming out of unassigned in fiscal 25.
Correct.
Actually, it's not coming out of unassigned, is it? It's, oh, you're saying it's in the general fund. It's just,
Most of it is in the general fund. It'll be coming out of all the overtime. Most of it will be coming out of the general fund. 434,000 in 2024 and the balance in 2025.
right.
And hopefully, you know, FEMA 100% reimbursable. That's why I like the expedited,
I
but
don't know where that shows up on the money incoming, where, like, I can't, because we have,
we record it as revenue.
it's just like just a line item for revenue.
We
for
have a separate,
FEMA?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is where I finished off. This is my own slide and my own thoughts so far. I haven't talked to anybody. You know, after going through this, with the previous hurricanes, we just had vegetative debris. You know, it would, Irma, all the ones would be between 1 million, 1.5 million. The sanitation fund had the money. But now we've got vegetative, C&D, household goods and all that. And I'm going, we're getting up into $5-6 million worth of debris. So I'm just thinking, should we have start another, a debris reserve account? You know, this 50,000 that's I might have seen as part of the fund balance and disaster reserve. That was put in the budget back in, was it, oh my God, 1993. You know, 50,000 doesn't go too far. So I don't know if there, you know, some sort of plan, or, you know, I go, well, you've got unassigned fund balance, but or should we have a separate reserve just for disaster reserve? And that was my thoughts of just trying to build up that 50,000 to say, okay, do we need $1 million there? Try to fund it with some other reserves, fund it through the budget process like we're doing, we're talking with the 1%, just to try to build up another reserve pot of money. And heaven forbid, you know, hopefully we don't have a hurricane next August or September, just having some money available. So that was only.
Is that a lack of confidence that FEMA will continue to reimburse or?
No, I'm just thinking mostly next year on the hurricanes. See, if we don't get reimbursed by September 30th, 2025, and we don't have that money, okay, what if another hurricane's coming in? Irma took almost 2 years to get the debris money from Irma. This last year they did better. We have a good FEMA consultant now. She helped us with what was the latest hurricane? Idalia. We got the money in less than a year. So I'm hoping, and she's going to be the same one for Helene and Milton. She keeps us on schedule, you know, with everything. So I'm hoping we get the money by September 30th, 2025. But not, are we waiting into October, November the next year until we get the money? Okay, what if there's another hurricane? Now we still don't have reimbursement from the previous hurricanes, Helene and Milton. So I'm a worrier, so that's why.
Oh, I get it. My thing is like, okay, great. So are we
Keeps me
going to
up
get
at night.
permission to vote to have another reserve fund? Whenever we've tried to get them to beef up unassigned reserve balance, you know, like the unassigned fund balance. To me, all of that is just making it more complicated.
Right.
When we could just have that unassigned fund balance be beefier because we're in a very prone area, and let's just own that. And frankly, I feel like we need to redo a whole lot of decisions that were made prior to 9/24.
That's what I've been banging around in my head. You know, do we need a separate disaster reserve, or just like you say, well, beef up the unassigned?
I mean,
I think we do need a separate one. We've always talked about the unassigned balance fund being for that day when a hurricane hits the city. Well, it's happened now. And now there's really no policy in place on, well, what's that unassigned balance? What can it be used for?
Well, and like you say, if the minimum 7.2 million, we have almost 9.2 million.
So
Okay, you got 2 million there.
Let's just take the
You
current
could,
unassigned balance and split it and reclassify part of it as a disaster reserve now.
right.
Because we have that room, like you're saying, the 2 point whatever million to still stay within the charter.
Yeah.
But then if we're all saying, you know, well, we're going to take it from the sidewalk fund until we get reimbursed from FEMA, like, that's the part I don't understand.
Well, I think you're
The-
saying now if we have this disaster reserve going forward in the future, we won't have to borrow from this fund and that fund. We've got the fund ready to pay our
Right.
bills and then replenish it once we get reimbursement.
Correct. And then getting down below in the sanitation fund, I thought, you know, they've been struggling with the yard waste operation. Used to be, you know, we had 400,000 of revenues, 200,000 expenses. You know, that big pile of yard debris that got out there last year, they ended up, the charge increased to reduce the debris. So now it's operating at a loss, where we used to have like 200,000 of profit. Now we're at like 100,000 of loss. So about 300,000. That's why last year, general fund unassigned fund balance could have been 300,000 more, but I had to shift money to the sanitation fund to keep near their minimum fund balance. So it's been, the cost of hauling out the debris went up from $20 a ton to $64.64 a ton. And a lot of that big pile that was out there last year had to be hauled out at a loss because we only charge the customers $50 a ton, but now we're hauling it out at $64 a ton. And then we increased the charge to the dump to $90 a ton, but it seemed like we started to lose customers. We didn't have as many customers coming in. So we're still struggling with that operation out there as far as making money. But now all of a sudden you've got all this hurricane debris out there in Helene and Milton. But I had a thought, you know, thought I had of trying to increase the reserves out at the yard waste facility is there's a 95-cent charge that's been the same since 1996. And the main purpose of it was to provide money to help support the yard waste operations. It's been 95 cents since 1996. It brings in about 125,000 annually. I just threw out there every dollar increase, of course, about 125,000. If we increased it $3 to $4, okay, that'd be an additional $375,000 out there. But this was all my own thoughts. I don't think I've mentioned anything. Maybe staff. I
That
don't
fee
know.
is the fee on the water bill? Is that where it's coming through on?
Yes, it's all part of the refuse and recycling bill.
Okay.
But you know, with the yard waste operations and sort of a flux now and losing money, I'm just trying to think of some ways to try to help prop it back up.
When you say yard waste, is that only yard waste or is that all debris, like furniture, the large dumpsters? Is that separate?
No, it's just the debris.
Just the
debris
sticks
that comes
and
in there.
leaves
Yeah.
and things.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it only yard waste losing money and
Yes.
okay, so the solid waste the other way isn't.
No, you know, that's not losing because that's mostly going to the contractor. We got the contractor rates, we pay them, and also the recycling rates too. They all go to the contractors.
And I'm asking because if you say so it's only the 95 cents per month is only to support yard
Waste.
Generally, the yard waste facility on normal operations without the storm only takes yard waste. It doesn't take
Right.
the other stuff
Right.
on a normal day.
The reason I'm asking is because I'm assuming that everybody that gets water pays that 95 cents.
Yes,
So I was just
it's on your utility bill.
right. So the service where we pick up the solids, the furniture, the twice a year, you know, the thing that got put off to January.
Falling, yeah,
Well, they have a dumpsters out there, don't they, for the?
I'm just saying that's included. That's free twice a year. You can you guys will haul off like anything. The contractor will haul that off.
Yeah.
I just the idea of up leveling the yard waste piece. If I were going to put a charge somewhere, I would maybe not put it where even if you live in an apartment or something, you're paying more. Whereas maybe something that everybody pays for. I don't know. Just maybe in my brain that just sounds
Okay.
yard waste versus. I don't know if there's a fee for the other side. There's not, I guess.
There is a fee. I think they have a fee for container services and stuff. Maybe that's for.
What I'm saying, the twice a year thing. Is there anywhere we collect anything from people who live in the city for that benefit?
Well, we collect from the contractors that go in and dump yard waste. Is that what?
No.
So are you
Twice a year, I can put a couch at the edge of the road.
I think
Is there
that's just
anywhere
like-
that I kind of
that's
pay for
part of your
that?
refuse.
That's part of the contract
That's
with
part of the
waste
contract,
management.
yeah.
The two
Oh,
times
so
a
it
year.
doesn't, y'all just,
It's
but, I mean, we're paying for it. It was just part of the
Yeah.
contract.
It's part of the
Included
contract, 2
included
times a
in
year.
their rates.
So it's in just the trash pickup rates. Got it. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
No, I just want to make sure. I just, sometimes when you phrase it yard waste, if I'm somebody who doesn't have a yard, I might not be real keen on that fee going up. Whereas at least if it's something I get a benefit for, I might
Yeah.
be a little more.
I
amenable to
apologize
that.
if I.
No, I was just trying. I don't know what all the different things are called. It's a lot. It's
confusing.
complicated right there.
Yeah. And my comment, I would, if we were gonna go up that much on that rate, I know $4 itself is not a lot, but it's a huge percentage increase. I would make it more transparent on the bill so people know what they're paying.
You know, even if it's $1 or something, to go up $1 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Dollar people wouldn't notice probably.
I just threw out $4, but
Yeah.
I was hopeful, but I
We
don't
could
know.
graduate it,
I go large and then I try to come back.
right? Good negotiating.
The effect on revenues going forward. This year, I don't see much besides it was been going to, and I'll have a graph on this later, but sales tax receipts declining a little bit this year. Property tax receipts, everybody got their property tax bill. I talked to the property appraiser. If somebody's home's got uninhabitable for 30 days, they could apply for a refund from the property appraiser. They still have to pay their taxes, but then they get a refund later. But from what I understand, there was no homes that were uninhabitable for 30 days. So I don't think we're going to see any reduction there. I guess, going forward, my crystal ball, our sales tax receipts, obviously places for tourism, places were closed down. We'll monitor it monthly as we usually do for the sales tax receipts, how much we're going down from the previous months. The one thing we just didn't know, and the unknown, was property values. The property appraiser goes out in January, starts appraising the properties. But we'll find out in May. That's when we get the estimate from the property appraiser of taxable values. I think the property appraiser I heard said he didn't think there was going to be too much of an effect. So that's what we're hoping for. Because, the last couple of years have been good. Taxable values, 2 years ago, went up almost 14%. Last year, the other year was 11 point something. And then this last year budget we just worked on was 9.18%. So my quick guess is, okay, we went from 14 to 11 to 9. We're going down about 2% a year. Well, next year will be 7%, but that's just a guess. So I don't know if we're going to see. We won't see until May, what the taxable values will be.
I met with somebody recently and they sent me a report that in areas that are affected strongly by a hurricane, on average, 2 years later, their property values are on average 7% higher. And it's because of whenever there's so many homes that have to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
So a lot of, like in my particular street, I expect a lot of homes will be sold for land value. So the short-term hit is there, and then the long-term gain is the report that I read. That was interesting.
And I think the city manager, is he still in? I'm sorry. He had a good thing. I happened to be gone that day, but they had a Zoom meeting with the city of Fort Myers Beach, where I think the first year they did see a decline, but I think the next year they saw where things came back rather well down there,
So many homes will
increasing the
have to be
values. Maybe
rebuilt,
people
yeah.
rebuilding and they got bigger, newer homes, and
That's what I would maybe at least hope for.
yeah, me too.
What about permits? Aren't we taking a pretty big hit on $0 permits, and it's already down for the year?
Well, we waived the permits. I think I had an estimate, maybe about $50,000 on waiving of the fees. We waived some penalty fees for water and sewer. I think that was more around $25,000. I think in total about $100,000 of the fees we've waived between permit fees, water and sewer penalties, water and sewer shutoff fees. I was up right around $100,000, so not too bad. But we're talking, I put these slides together. I just thought, well, let me just show you the history of the taxes and stuff. And of course, this is property tax revenue in the blue bars and the change in the bronze colored bars for the last 10 years. And as you can see, in 2023, we went up 1.5 million. That was the almost 14% increase. And in 2024 was the 11%, it was a little bit over 11% increase in the taxable values. And this is what I'm talking about, the sales tax. I keep thinking of this term that Greenspan said, irrational exuberance or something like that, where you see in 2020, we went down. What was that? That was COVID. We went down 79,000 and half-cent sales tax money. But then the next 2 years, you've got 2021, we're up 270,000. 2022, we're up 245,000. Okay. Well, in 2023, we started going down. We're down 43,000. And this year, we decreased 56,000. I don't know if we're just normalizing here. We had everybody traveling and tourism in 2021 and 22, and we're just sort of settling back down. For the 25 budget, we were watching this, so we budgeted, I think in the half cent, it's just maybe about 20 or 30,000 over that, the actuals for 2024. Revenue sharing, which the main component is sales tax, same thing, 21 and 22. The big, well, we had in 2020, we had the loss of, it went down 67,000. But then in 2021, we're up 143,000. 2022, we're up 251,000. And then we start going back down in 2023, down $31,000 increase. And then this year, we're $50,000 below the previous year. So again, I don't know if it's just sort of normalizing out. And then again, we budgeted just like 20,000 over that actual for 2024. The other tax, penny sales tax, same thing. Okay, we went down in 2020, but not in the negatives. But we still had an increase of 40,000. But 2021, we went up 522,000. 2022, we went up 494,000. And we started going down in 2023. We only had an increase of 63,000, and then this year we're an increase of $8,700. I guess getting on to something else, I just want to update you on the Lands Dredge site approved by the voters November 5th. The invitation to bid the banks went out on 11/6. The bids are due back tomorrow at noon. The lender will be selected next week. And then it's going to go before the board on December 17th to approve the lender, and they're going to close on that property either the end of December or the first week of January. Some of the financing costs, 5.3 million finance, 5.25 million for the land, and 50,000 of issuance costs. Term for 10 years, we've estimated 4% interest, but I think our financial advisor, he said he's more on the conservative side, so I think it might be a little bit lower than the 4%. At 4%, the annual debt service is $665,000 each year. It's a covenant to budget and appropriated, which means it's backed by all legally available non-ad valorem revenues. The other thing out there, we were hoping, the county's been trying to get a grant for to construct Beckett Bridge. If they got the grant, it would include us moving the utility lines, but this was the second time they tried, but I guess it didn't pass again. They're going to try again, I guess. Which means currently the city will have to go out for bid for a contractor to move the utility lines. They can't construct the bridge until the utility lines are moved. They are under the water. The estimate for bid is going out probably late spring. We're trying to, coordinate the timeline with the counties. So far, they say they would start construction, I think, latter part of next summer, which means we have to have the utility lines started and, removed at that cost of $4.2 million. I think when we go out to bid in March for a bank loan, they have the money ready so we can start moving those utility lines, but then coordinate with the county to see, okay, do we have to do it in March, or maybe they're behind schedule and it can come later. So that's the other financing we're looking at doing for the Beckett Bridge utility line relocation. With that, that's all I've got. You got any questions?
Did we, in the 25 budget, did we budget for that debt service on the land since we sort of knew that was a possibility?
No, we didn't put that in. It was still sort of open back then when we were working on the budget.
So we'd have to find 665,000 for next year's budget?
Well, I've got it, when we talked about it, I got it planned in for the 665,000
Okay.
What about the other, whatever, it's gonna be another
for the Beckett Bridge.
550,000.
I'm sorry, what?
I mean, I'm guessing if we have to borrow 4 million for that,
We'd have
That'll
that.
come out of the water and sewer fund, and we did know this was coming. This Beckett Bridge construction has been ongoing for, I think, 5-6 years now. I hate to say, but the initial estimate of cost was to move the utility lines was like $800,000 6 or 7 years ago. So it's gone up. But we did, when we worked on our rates, we did have $3 million factored into the rates for this relocation. So We just have to, we're going to do another utility rate study this winter, and we'll factor in the additional $1 million to see how we can cover that within the water and sewer fund.
So with both of those in place, next 25, we'll have a little over $1 million in debt service on the two items, right?
Correct. The one would be coming out of the penny fund, the other one would be coming out of the water and sewer fund.
Random question about the earlier thing on the Duke Energy where they said, oh, we overpaid you last year.
Yeah.
Do we ever get audited numbers for them, or can questioning that? I just,
Well, that's a good question. We have hired an auditor to go through and check all the properties, make sure we're getting all our money. So that is something we could do again.
Back to your thinking out loud about the disaster fund, debris, whatever.
Yeah.
Where does that go from here? Is that something you're going to continue to look at, or?
Well, it'd probably be something, probably discussion with the city manager and whether to bring that up to the board. I'd just like to look at some avenues to just plant, before we knew we've only experienced vegetative debris, but now we had C and D. We're seeing costs going from 1.5 million to 5 million. Okay, maybe we need some more reserve here somewhere. So just opening it up for discussion right now.
Okay.
and as part of that discussion, I would say there needs to be a policy in place of how and when that unassigned balance gets spent. What types of things could it be spent on? What approval would be necessary? Because I don't
thought
think
it
we
could
have
be
a policy
spent.
guiding that right now, do we?
On the spending of it?
On the unassigned balances, there's some policy in place on,
Well, if it's over the minimum, we're open to spend the money.
okay.
So I just want to understand, what is the benefit to having it, knowing that if because we did just get it, they're going to do an extra 1%. Did they agree? I can't remember exactly how that went down.
Yes, they did.
They did. The 1% a year, like to get that stronger, the unassigned fund balance stronger. Is there a benefit to that? Is the whole reason for all of this is because if we take the money to temporarily pay bills that FEMA is going to reimburse and put the money back in unassigned balance, we have to worry that we might fall beneath the minimum for a short time and then we'll have those repercussions? Is that why we do the other moving around of money?
Are you talking about as far as the debris removal? Why?
Yeah,
Why
like-
do the loan why not just use it?
Yeah.
Okay, if we have 3 million that we need to spend, okay, we've got 5 million of debris removal, we got 2.5 expedited coming in, but we might still have 2.53 million we still got to spend.
Right.
That's the thing. Do we do a loan from another fund to cover it until we get FEMA reimbursed? Or do you just charge it all to the unassigned, which if it goes from, well, if it's 9 million, 9.1 million, we take off 3 million, we'll go below that minimum.
And I feel like the only way we ever get them to get that unassigned balance up where we're all more comfortable, where we wanted it before, is if we do have some of those fluctuations shown. I feel like it's a false sense of security to borrow it from other areas to cover. So we're like, oh, look, our unassigned fund balance never dropped below 9.1 million. That's not true. But that's just not a true story. And so I don't like that.
My only concern with going below the minimum is if somewhere it's in the policy, I've got the policy, or in case you ask for copies and stuff, but if you go below the minimum and we're working on next year's budget and maybe our sales tax revenues are down, we're trying to balance the budget, maybe our revenues aren't quite what we're used to and our expenditures are going up, we're not allowed to use the unassigned fund balance to balance the budget if we're below the minimum. So that was a factor out there was weighing in my mind that we'd be limited. We couldn't use it to balance a budget. We haven't
So
used it in
then
the last
maybe we
8, 9 years.
budget without it. Like I'm just saying, like all those guardrails are in place for a reason. And so here we are looking at the false sense of security that we really have plenty of unassigned fund balance, which I would argue we don't, and tried to in front of commission. $1 million more in debt service, like rising expenditures, the possibility of a drop in values next year. Like all those things kind of come to a head, and you very quickly go from a very financially strong city to not so much. And so I think we tried to convey that to commission several months ago, and there were some chuckles
Yeah.
in the meeting, and that's annoying to see. And it's like, I don't like to be right in terms of I told you so, but here we are. Like that's exactly what we said. Like what if? There's a lot of what ifs. Here we are with what if.
Yeah. If you got what if another hurricane next August, September,
Exactly.
not,
So I'm just saying, like, I also similarly, like, if it's a disaster reserve, whatever, if that's on top of, I don't want 3 years from now, it's like, well, we can let the unassigned fund balance go a little lower because we've got this disaster reserve over here. And it's like, if it does start, I understand why it was mentioned shell game. It does feel a little like that. And I know why that has to be that way to make a budget work. I do get it. But on the other hand, then it just lets everybody have this false sense.
Yeah, it's like a balancing act too. Okay, what pot of money are we getting to pay for this from?
Right. Well, we could spend less and have a bigger pot to save for a disaster when we live
Right.
where we live at zero sea level, and we've got a place to dump some sand. I hope we have a working dock that's not underwater. Let's figure that out. So how are we going to do that? I don't know. But we tried.
But we did have you mentioned the 1%. We had it in last year's budget. We've got it in this year's budget to fund the 1%. It's in the budget.
Question on that policy. I know it's been there forever. In doing some research on the unrestricted fund policies, I see most of them, I wouldn't say the majority, but a lot of them have minimums and maximums. Ours was only set up with the minimum. Is there a particular rationale for that?
Other cities,
Yes,
a maximum?
they have a maximum, but your unrestricted fund has to be between. If it goes above that maximum, there's other parameters in which that money can be used then.
I've only seen, usually you have a minimum fund balance policy. I haven't heard of
And most of those also have a mechanism to put money into that. That's the reason they can sometimes go above that level.
and I did a survey just within the last year on the screen here. I don't know if it was in your backup there, but Clearwater's is 8% minimum, Dunedin 17%, Largo 10% with a target 20%, St. Pete 20%, and GFOA, our Government Finance Officers Association, recommends 17%, which is 2 months of expenditures. Ours is at the 20%.
Some probably do a maximum so that you're not just sandbagging money every year.
Yeah, that may well be. But I did find a good number of places that the ones I looked at had maximums in them. So I was just wondering what the history of ours was.
A maximum, so you wouldn't have any more than that?
If you went above that, that money then had other parameters for being utilized by the city commission. They could use it for one-time expenses, nothing recurring or would need additional staff. They could use it for one-time
Yeah,
expenditures.
I think
and
some
that-
of the rationale on that being if you're building up all those funds, then you're not spending the taxpayers' money on the taxpayers. You're just building up cash reserves.
Well, there is in the policy, if you're over the minimum, but it says, in the event that the unassigned fund balance of general fund or of the unrestricted net assets of the propriety fund exceeds the amount set forth above, the excess may be utilized for any lawful purpose if it's over the minimum, is our policy. A policy also states, if you go below the minimum, you have 2 fiscal years to bring it back up to the minimum.
Correct.
Is that part of the charter? Is
No,
it-
it's
just a policy.
investment policy.
Yeah, I'd like to see, instead of just any lawful purpose, I'd like that a little bit more restricted.
I had copies of it if you wanted it, but
Yeah.
I had some additional slides here, but I didn't know. I know you, Chairman, you were mentioning the investment policy, and I put some stuff in here myself, you know, this is the general fund where it's at 20%. And in red, I had some thoughts. I ran it by our auditors, you know, 20% with a target rate of 25%. And then in red, I also put if the unassigned fund balance is between 20 and 25%, the city shall budget a minimum of 1% to fund unassigned fund balance. And then I added in budgeting the minimum 1% would be waived if the city is undergoing, and I put financial emergency. I didn't know if there was some other wording to call that, but I just put this together. I know you had your questions
So in that
about
way, I like the idea of the disaster reserve as long as it doesn't reduce the requirement upon, like, is that a way we can get more readily available as long as it doesn't reduce
the unassigned.
the unassigned, requirement? Like, as long as it's not like, then everybody starts thinking, oh, well, we could have less there.
That's why I was trying to think, there might be a couple other reserves which we could help build up that $50,000 and or if we're budgeting for a disaster reserve along with funding the unassigned fund balance. But it's,
Well, I like the concept you guys, but we'd have to look at that a little more.
yeah. My other thing I put in the policy was, I might have mentioned this, that the water and the enterprise funds, water, sewer, stormwater, sanitation, they have a 25% minimum. The marina and golf course were never included because they've been in a deficit for a lot of years. They're not in a deficit anymore. Golf course got out of the deficit just last year, about 300,000. They're doing it again this year. They might have a fund balance of 600, 700,000. I just throwing this out there. I just thought, I even put it at 5% just to make it small. I think it's more like so somebody's looking at it to make sure they've got a report on that we're at least 5%, so we don't get into the negative fund balance again with the golf course. I mean, since we took it over in '96, it was just negative fund balance the whole way. And in fact, it was 1.3 million in the hole just 4 or 5 years ago. I'm just amazed when COVID, and I think people wanted to start golfing. It's just on great guns right now for the golf course.
I think it should have a minimum balance, and
Yeah.
really, truth be known, the golf course owes the general fund money.
Don't tell them that. But, well, you know,
I will tell them that every day because
you don't golf out there, do you?
no, but my neighbor works there.
Well, you know, we used to. In fact, it was 275,000 when they started years ago. But I gradually started decreasing it 6-7 years ago from 275,000, 250, 200. Then it was 120, and gradually eliminated the interfund transfer to get altogether about 2-3 years ago. So there's no transfer from the golf course or marina to the general fund. There never was from the marina, but the marina's a small fund. It's maybe $150,000 budget. But
Well, since the golf course is in the black now, maybe we resume that allocation. Start recouping some of that money in the general fund.
I told him I wouldn't.
I know you.
I tell him I
You
lied.
and I have had this discussion. For
I'm just so happy to see him in the positive after.
You are. That means they can start paying now.
Yeah. I'm good, but I'll tell him that you guys advised that.
There you go.
Nothing I can do. I don't know if I had anything on.
We can allocate all that beer and wine
There you go.
money.
Well, they are, you know, Tommy was up yet. They got plans for a new clubhouse, you know, so they're part of the money being used that, but there might need financing too. For if you got a clubhouse that's going to be $3 million and trying to finance that over 10 years. But he had it all factored in if the revenues are still coming in. And so I think they are due for a new clubhouse out there.
They have been for a while.
Yeah. This screen was just the one that says, you know, any deficit, last sentence, any deficit required must be restored no later than the end of the second fiscal year following the occurrence.
Some of those things we want to look at for future meetings.
Yes.
I agree.
Is that it?
Anything else under new business? Okay, any public comments? John?
Rest of the story. Thank you for having me, letting me speak. I'm John Koulianos, 1020 Peninsula Avenue. Do you do that address thing here like we do downstairs? All right. So, you know, you guys owe the city and you owe the commission a huge "I told you so." Because, if we had listened to you and raised the fund balance of the reserve balance by that 1%, if we had done it for 5 years, we'd have about 13 million in the account right now, instead of probably more than that, probably 14, 15 million with compounding interest. And we'd be in a little better shape, and maybe wouldn't have to go swipe money from other funds that are unrelated. So, I don't want to relitigate that what happened on Tuesday night, but you made my point. When we take the funds from other places, and you just heard the city finance director, who I love dearly, say, we have $9 million. No, we don't. We don't have $9 million. We just took, we owe the hospital, we owe the sidewalk, we owe them money. But the appearance of having this surplus still exists, when in fact, in reality, it doesn't. And that's my concern. And that's why I was pushing so hard for that on Tuesday. I don't want to give the appearance. I want it to look like we have no money, because we don't, right? I don't want to have it look like we're representing something that we don't have. So the, I want you guys to be cognizant, and the city finance director touched on some of this. Our 3 sources of revenue. We went over this down at the commission meeting. Ad valorem taxes. Okay, values, we're going to know in May whether they're down or not. They are, and I think what we heard from the city, I was on that call, and with the other city, with the city manager, they had a big, now they were hit harder than us, so it's proportionate, but they were hit hard year 1, much harder in year 2, and then had their rebound in year 3. So we're looking to, going to be in one of these dips, maybe, okay? Sales tax. You can imagine that they've been going down naturally, and you can assume they're going to be going down. Tourism was hit hard by the hurricanes. And, we got our half cent, our state share, and our penny for Pinellas, which again, the city finance director, relies on that penny for Pinellas very heavy. And he talks about it quite a bit. Oh, we're going to get our money from penny for Pinellas. Well, that is most likely going to get hit as well. What he didn't touch on is services. We get a big chunk of our money comes from water and sewer fees, and we've probably got, we're giving a lot of breaks to people that on their water and sewer fees, and we're also, we probably got a lot of homes that the water's been shut off, and that we're getting no fees from. Again, we'll know in May. So the one thing I worry about, and what the city manager, when we were on that call, was that what was happening in the community that we talked to, the storm with the rebuilding started changing the demographics of the town. And yeah, they did get more money, but let's say, for example, somebody lives in the Fruit Bowl district, has a home, and now they, with that 50% thing and all that, even though they might be exempt because they're in a historic district, they're not going to get financing. How are they going to get financing to rebuild on the same land, right? At the same level. So then they can't afford to go up, and they sell their land, and then somebody comes in and buys it and builds a much bigger house. That's a whole demographic change, right? Instead of having the little old lady that's been there for her whole life, she's has to go. And now you've got, a higher end people, but it changes the demographics. Good or bad, it does. So those are, some of the side consequences. We had lunch with the city manager today, and we got into a pretty esoteric conversation about the role of government, right? And when we first started in our country, right, the role of government was very, very small. you dug a well to get your water. You had a gun to protect yourself. You know, all those things. And now slowly government starts doing more and more and more and more for you, right? Like, my house got damaged. I'm putting the stuff out there. I expect government to come and get the stuff and take it away from me. Oh, and they're going to do it at no cost. There is no cost.
Immediately.
And they're going to do it right now. But there is no cost. Okay, you know, like, oh, we have that one day where they come around and pick up all your household goods, and you think, oh, that's for free. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's why you don't think that the waste management doesn't put that into the charge, that they're gonna, oh, you want all this pickup, we're gonna pay for it, and eventually that comes back on you, right? All of us, we're all taxpayers here, and we all pay that bill. So, you know, I don't want to be, you know, Chicken Little saying, you know, the sky's going to fall. But I don't want to be stupid, and I don't want to be an ostrich with my head in the sand. We are going to have challenges, and I promise you'll have my ear when you come up to the podium the next time, because, and again, I expect that I told you so. So, but we're going to have to make tough choices. And Christy, you're the only one I've ever heard. Again, I didn't come to all your meetings, so other people might have said this. Remember when you were talking about, somebody was up here talking about their department, and you said, like, and you said, I may not make any sense, but I don't, it's like you're just bringing me what you spent last year, and you say, oh, I can need 3% more. Like, you're not justifying anything, right? Don't you remember you were sitting in that chair right there?
I didn't say it quite like that. Like, I was a little different, but
No,
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you were challenging. No, because here's what happens in government.
Consistency.
And I know these people all probably hate me after I get done saying this, but I'm not here for them. I'm here for those people that might be watching on this TV screen. When somebody comes up and says, hey, my department, I spent $5 million last year. I need 3.5% more, right? Now you think that they're going to come to you and say, I only spent $4 million last year. I didn't spend the $5 million you gave me. So I don't want that much. Or I found all these efficiencies. I don't need $5 million. Just give me 3. I'll be good. How many times did you hear that? Have you heard anybody say that? No. So pushback. You know, make them explain why they need it. Not, I spent this much last year, that's why I need it. That's not a reason. Make them explain it. That's what you were trying to do.
Our new city manager, make them explain it.
But you're our first line of defense. You're our first line of defense.
Like, I don't want to get in the weeds of anybody's job. I think our job here is a little bit different than that, a little bit. But yeah, I want to push back. It's the complacency piece, and I'll just say that in my normal day job business, I don't give money budgets. It's time. It's a different thing because money is so easy to like.
Well, because
finagle.
we have to make a profit. Okay, we come from the private sector and then I need 4 people to run my store. Every one of them have to be productive. I know exactly why I want them. I know exactly what they do. I'm not saying that we aren't productive in our city. I'm not saying there's one wasted human being in our city. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it just needs to be questioned, because if we're going to hit tough times, if we're going to have a couple tough years, where's the restriction come from? There's only so many funds that they can go grab money from to fill the gaps up. We're going to have to make hard decisions. And so when you push, it makes them, sharpen that pencil a little bit more, knowing where they're coming, that this isn't just an easy, we're going to get some more money. I'll just steamroll over that. And we, we don't get those hard questions even downstairs. When, you guys do more of the heavy lifting than we do, because you spend a heck of a lot more time reviewing this budget than when it comes down to the commission. And, the questions you get down there are almost silly, right? So it's great when you have those big ups, right? When they tell you, hey, your property values just went up 17%. Shh, we're drunk with money then. We're good. We can go. Maybe this isn't. Maybe this isn't a 4%. Maybe it's only a 1%. Maybe it's a nothing increase. Maybe it's a decrease. I don't know. We'll know a lot more in May. But anyways, I appreciate what you guys do and just continue to be tough. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Board and staff comments?
I do. Actually, I hate that he's going to miss it. Make him watch it on the replay. I do have
Go
a
ahead.
comment.
Go ahead.
And that is, I know that this committee is required as a part of something. I just don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And maybe Michelle can fill me in on that. Not later. You don't have to do it today. But I had considered resigning from this board because I did not feel like this board is taken very seriously. And I know you apologized to me, and I'm not calling anybody out. But when they did the salary recommendation approval within the board, and they didn't even ask what the board recommended, nobody in the commission asked. We weren't even brought up. In hindsight, we were brought up. There was just a lot of, I'm like, this is a fake job. If you've ever heard about fake jobs, I have a fake job, and it's just to do the thing and check the box to say we have that. I don't know if it's to be a certain type of city. I don't know what it is, but I do not think that our opinion is held to the to what it should be for the time that's invested by us here and the amount of care and concern that exists. And so I want to make sure that whatever can be done by that, and as seen by this, right? Like, they didn't listen at the meeting very well, in my opinion, from the commission. And this is about the commission and the general air of like, oh, the budget advisory, in my opinion, has to exist for whatever reason. But whatever they say, it doesn't really matter. It's not like planning and zoning where it's not the same. It's just different. And this is the money. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Of all the things to not have it have any weight whatsoever, it's the money. And that really doesn't make sense to me. And I just don't want to be here under that umbrella of care and concern about the committee. That's my comment.
Thank you. Any other board and staff comments? Future agenda items? Other than we need to address the things that Ron brought up today in terms of changes to the investment policy and possibly the unrestricted fund policy. We need to look at those again in the future.
Also, I would, a change for going into next year's budget. Generally, when we start our budget meetings, the budget's pretty much done.
Yes.
I've found. And so I would say like maybe our March meeting, we'd be given by Ron or whoever a list of assumptions that we're going into the budget with so that we know before it's being built. And so we could question them at that time. Usually start the process in March, April.
Well, in March, we're usually getting the numbers from the departments. We have talked about moving that up and trying to start a little bit earlier, and especially with City Manager Rudd, he might want to get more involved in the budget earlier. So yeah, I don't know if March, maybe April at the latest for you to try to start going over the assumptions.
Yeah, probably March, I would say. The earlier, the better.
Okay. I know we'll make do, but I know in March, we're trying to get the audit done and stuff. But we can start, I'm sure we could find
Yeah, nothing in
just
depth.
something, talking the major assumptions.
Yeah,
what
just
we're
an overview of going into this process. These are the major assumptions we're going to make so that we know beforehand before we start in May with our detailed review, and we're kind of behind the 8 ball already, knowing what philosophy.
And hopefully maybe we'll push up the departments. So maybe when we come to you in March, we could already say, these are what these departments are looking for. And I know the city manager is starting a CIP process, asking all the departments now. Maybe by then we could have that CIP ready for you to look at.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other suggestions for future budgets? Okay, what is the date for the next meeting? I know December is out because of holidays. I don't know when you'll have something else to report back, Ron, or in terms of where we're at financially.
Well, sometimes we do like, I think it might be we might have done one in February, trying to figure maybe the first 3 months of the year where we're at. We've got more final numbers for the audit for 2024, if you want to hear those again.
Yes.
I know my presentations are riveting.
I think they're important to know
Yeah.
at various stages.
Maybe we could find, if anything else comes up, or the financings or anything else that's coming up.
So you're saying February then?
How about February?
That good for everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what would that date be,
The
Michelle?
February would be 15th.
15th. Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait a minute.
Nope.
20th should be.
I'm
I
sorry.
think
the
Valentine's
20th.
Day is on the 14th.
20th?
Wrong year.
Okay,
Thank you.
February 20th for the next meeting. Anything else? Then I'll adjourn this meeting at 3:16.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great holiday. Can't believe it's that.
What's that? Yeah.
Great holidays.
And because of Thanksgiving being late. you
It's
have-
so late,
you
yeah.
You lose a week in there.
You do. I know. And being in retail, that sucks.